In a study, a sample is chosen by writing everyone's names on playing cards, shuffling the deck, and choosing the top 20 cards. Okay, so I'm going to do this question. Careful, I'm going to do 3, 4, and 5 all at once here. Suppose, let me ask you this. Suppose you wanted to find the average age of students. Well, here, let's continue with the governor thing. What if you wanted to figure out, will California, will our state recall our governor in a few months or not? So what if you wanted to figure that out ahead of time? A lot of people want to figure that out ahead of time. That's what pollsters do. They go out and they poll, they try to figure it out. So how could you go about doing that in a scientific method? Let me give some suggestions. What if you did what they're saying here? What if you grabbed, oops, it's not grabbed, is it? Grabbed names at random. That's called simple random sampling. That's what's happening here. A sample is chosen by writing names on cards. So they just did it with cards, shuffling the deck and choosing 20. That's simple random sampling. So you could just ask people at random, right? You could just go out in the street and ask people at random. You could just walk down the street and you could just grab 20 people and just ask them, hey, in the election that's coming up, are you going to want to recall the governor? Yes or no? And that would be called simple random sampling. But then on number 4 here, they did it a little different. They're giving an example of separating. Now they're doing a cars one. Let me change it to the governor situation. It's all the same. Basically, what if you did your 20 people, but you made sure you broke it into basically racial groups. So maybe you had 10 of this racial group number 1 and 6 people from group number 2 and 3 people from racial group number 3, 2 and 1, based on the population. So you might have a certain number of Hispanic people. You might have a certain number of white people, Asian people, Black people, Native American people. I don't know. I'm not sure what the real populations are, but right, you might do that, and then you want to make sure that maybe 10 are men and 10 are women out of your group of 20, etc. When you do that kind of thing, that's called stratified sampling, and that's actually a wise way to do sampling. You might also, have, I don't know, break by income levels. The rich and the poor. Break by income levels. So that when they do that, and that is actually how they do polling. It's called stratified. You break them into what are called various strata. These are called strata, meaning so if you break them up into the different racial groups, because different racial groups tend to vote differently, men and women tend to vote differently, different income levels tend to vote differently, whether you live in the city or the country, so that's how they do polling these days. That's actually very scientific. That's a very scientific method. So they'll look at the whole state of California and they'll go, okay, half of the state of California is white, a third is Asian, maybe 40% is Hispanic, maybe this amount is Black, Native American, And so they'll break up their sample. They'll make their sample like a little bitty California, so that they have the same percentages in their little sample of 20 people. They probably have to make it bigger. Let's say 200 people. And so they break it up into the various groups. They'd also make sure they have, men and women and income levels and things like that, live in the city, live in the country. So that's called stratified sampling. It's very scientific. And that way you get to the truth, which is the purpose of polling, right? To find out what's really going to happen on election day, to figure that out in advance. Well, then you make your sample a small picture of the whole state of California. That's called stratified sampling, breaking it up into strata. And then on question, and that's what they're talking about here by separating cars by size, 10 from each group. That's called stratified sampling. And the final one, what if instead you just ask your 40 closest friends? What if I was just to say, well, I want to figure out what's going to happen with the governor recall thing. And so I'm just gonna ask my 40 closest friends and family. Say, hey, do you want to recall the governor? I'll just ask all my friends and family. Well, that's not a good plan. You're not going to get to the truth. That's just convenient sampling. That's just doing what's easy. It's not scientific. It's not going to get you to the truth. No truth. You're not going to get the true result. So if you say, well, yeah, I asked all my friends and family and they all feel this way, so that's what's going to happen in California in a couple months. Well, no, probably your friends think like you. My friends think like me, right? So you're not going to get the general wide opinion of the whole state of California by just asking your friends. That's called a convenience study, and it's not scientific. It doesn't get to the truth. If you really want to get to the truth, you've got to do stratified sampling. You've got to break up your little sample of, say, 200 people to be a little picture of the whole state of California, broken into the different racial groups, men and women, income levels, live in the city, live in the country, etc. That's the scientific method. And you do throw randomness in that as well. That's generally, they randomize a stratified sample. That's what they do. Convenience studies don't work well at all. They don't get us to the truth. There we go.